How are you feeling this afternoon?
Well, I'm fine, and I trust we will be leaving the European Union on the 29th of March, which is what we voted to do. The government has had 2 years, 8 months to negotiate a deal. Unfortunately, it hasn't been able to negotiate a sensible deal, and it was decisively rejected by Parliament. So unless the Prime Minister can come up with something in the next few days, then we should just get on with leaving. It's not crashing out, it will be cashing in, because we could have a budget in April this year to spend a lot of that money that we'll otherwise be giving away to the European Union.
But my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, from what the Prime Minister has been saying today, it's either, well, she used to say my deal or no deal. Now she's saying it's my deal or delay. So you're going to support her deal?
No, it's not what she said. The default position, well, the default position, because Parliament has legislated for it, is that we leave on the 29th of March with no agreement. We will have another vote on whether her agreement, with or without revision, is something Parliament would still like to do. And unless there were fundamental changes, I can't really see that working very well. And then she has said that, of course, Parliament can have a vote on whether it would like to delay rather than just leaving. But she was talking about quite a short delay, and I can't see the point of a short delay. We want to get on with leaving. The sooner we leave, the sooner we get the benefits. We can start spending the money, we can cut the tariffs where appropriate so that we can have cheaper goods from non-EU sources. We can get on with making our own laws. We can control our own borders, and above all, we can get our own fishing industry back. There are so many wins from Brexit that I hope Parliament wouldn't want to delay them and get in the way of the British people having their wishes.
Yeah, but that's not really the point, is it? I mean, my question remains, is she saying it's her deal or an extension, short extension, whatever you want to call it? I mean, an extension...
No, she's not saying that.
An extension is an extension.
She is saying she's going to put 2 votes to Parliament. The first vote is, will Parliament accept her agreement or not?
Yeah.
And if Parliament says no to it, it would mean we were leaving without an agreement. And then she will put or allow Parliament to debate a motion on delaying leaving altogether, which is a separate issue. I trust she won't be recommending delay. She's always been very clear, and rightly so, that we're leaving on the 29th of March.
OK. So my understanding is this. There'll be one vote on the 12th of March, which is the next version of the meaningful vote. If the government doesn't secure approval for that deal, then by the 13th of March, the government will ask the House if the country should leave without a deal. If the House of Commons rejects the government on the 14th of March, the government will bring forward a motion requesting a short extension. Is that right?
Yes, exactly right.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean the government would recommend a short extension. And the question you'd have to ask is, what would the extension be for? Because presumably the government would still like to improve the agreement. But if the government hasn't been able to improve the agreement by the middle of March, it's difficult to see why another month or 2 would make much difference. The Prime Minister also rightly pointed out that you can't go on extending your time in the European Union without fighting the European parliamentary elections. And I haven't heard anybody seriously suggesting that we should now change our mind on leaving and therefore start up election campaigns for the May European elections.
OK, well, the DUP have said there's no way that she'll extend Article 50 after promising for months that she's not going to go anywhere near it. Do you agree with the DUP?
Well, I don't want to extend it, and I will, in all probability, vote accordingly. I can't speak for the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister made it pretty clear today that she'd rather leave on the 29th of March, but she also would far rather leave with an agreement. We know that. And we will know nearer the time, if there isn't an agreement that can go through, what her guidance would be on the other motion. I hope it will be the same as in the past, which is there is no point in extending.
Should there be a free vote?
I shouldn't think so, no. I should think it would be a whipped vote. But quite a lot of my colleagues seem to regard all these votes as free votes anyway. The government managed to lose the withdrawal agreement by 230 votes on a whipped vote. And I think Labour is quite incapable of whipping its people for anything, because, of course, Labour is on its own trajectory of self-destruction on this, now saying the people got it wrong and saying the people have got to have another referendum. And that is going to be very divisive in the Labour Party, so I don't think they'll be very cohesive voting together.
Been hearing from the Defence Minister, Tobias Ellwood. He's told Sky News common sense has prevailed and the country's interest has been put first. The Prime Minister's statement is welcome and timely given where Brexit was potentially heading, but crashing out, in his words, has only been temporarily avoided, and as an eventual outcome, it very much remains a possibility. There is still much work to be done to guarantee the threat of a no-deal Brexit is removed. Your thoughts on that?
Well, he and I disagree because, as I've said, I think leaving under World Trade Organization rules with a series of side agreements which are already agreed or will be agreed by the 29th of March, governing the smooth movement of lorries and trucks and flying of planes and all those other things which are being put in place, would be a good outcome, particularly because we would then have a lot of money to spend. I think our economy needs a boost. It's been squeezed by government and Bank of England policy over the last year. I think we need to inject a bit of cash into it, and we would be able to afford to do that if we left on the 29th of March without agreeing to pay a whole load of money over to the European Union.
They have no
Tobias,
choice but
of course,
to pay
is a
that
minister,
money, though, as
so
you
he
know.
has to support.
As you know, we have to pay that £39 billion. We are obliged.
No, we don't.
Of course we do.
No, we don't.
Go on.
No.
Go on, tell me why we don't.
There is no legal liability to pay that whatsoever.
Well, that's not what the House of Lords said, is it?
Well, remember, over half... Well, the House of Lords said we didn't have a legal liability, and most sensible lawyers say we haven't got a legal liability.
Questionable. No, that's absolutely not true. What they said was it was questionable whether or not we had to pay it.
There is nothing in the treaty saying we have to pay it. And remember that over half of that alleged 39 billion, which would actually be more than 39 billion, is payments to stay in the EU for another 21 months, which we clearly wouldn't be doing, and therefore we wouldn't owe any of that money on anybody's assumptions because we wouldn't be getting the alleged benefits of staying in for another 21 months.
Yeah, but if you agree to join a club and then you decide not to go anymore, doesn't mean that you don't have to pay your subs.
Of course it does. When you resign from a club, you stop paying the subscription and they carry on with the expenses they need to incur for the other club members.
It depends how long you've agreed to be a member of that club for, of course, though, doesn't it? What do you think about the phraseology crashing out?
We agreed to be a member for the club.
What do you think about the phraseology crashing out as far as the Defence Minister is concerned?
Well, I think it's not the correct term, and I ask everybody who says that, what do you mean by it? And I've never yet had a satisfactory explanation of what is going to crash. We know that Dover-Calais is going to work fine. The port authorities on both sides have said that they're going to ensure smooth passage of trucks as before. We know that we can trade perfectly well under WTO rules because that's what we do for the bulk of our trade at the moment because the EU is in the WTO as we are and it governs our non-EU trade. We know the planes will fly because everybody says so and they're selling tickets for the planes to fly after March the 30th, whatever happens. There are lots of silly scare stories, but I still haven't seen a scare story that I believe which amounts to crashing out.
And what about that pesky Irish border backstop problem?
Well, there isn't an Irish border problem. The Irish border at the moment is a complex border. You have different excise arrangements, different VAT arrangements, different currency arrangements. You have an anti-terrorist and an anti-smuggling border. That is all policed perfectly well without intrusive border controls. If we needed to add tariffs and customs to it, they would be done in the same way as the VAT and the excise. And so there's no need to invent new technology and there's no need to put up watchtowers or to have people in kiosks working out sums. It all happens by computer away from the border these days.
Did you just use the word watchtowers?
I said you don't need that. That's exactly what you wouldn't have.
Right. But otherwise,
I thought people were conjuring up some kind of image of a hard border, and that's exactly what we don't want, and everybody agrees about that. And I don't think anybody would dream of putting one up.
OK, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.